Worship leaders. Do you have someone in your church who plays violin or cello and they'd love to be a part of the worship team and you'd love to have them, but they're classically trained and they're not really comfortable in a worship team environment? How do you help? Let's talk about it. Welcome to Blueprint Sounds. My name is Nathan Smith. I'm answering a question today that came in from a online forum on Facebook that I belong to. It's a really good question, so I thought I'd take a stab at helping out. How do you incorporate a violin player that is classically trained and is only familiar with playing sheet music? Is there a good place to get sheet music where I can pay a subscription fee? It gets too expensive to pay $7 a song. We tried having her play the root note in each chord to accompany the band, but she didn't like the way it sounded, although we all felt like it was a beautiful addition to our worship team. She said it was too abstract and she was afraid it was off-key. She might benefit from an online tutorial or some training videos that would point her in the right directions. Any advice or suggestions is welcome. Well, let's see if I can help. There's actually two components to this question. One is a purely technical question. How do I write string parts? And we're going to answer that. But there's also the second component, and that's more of a leadership question, and it really comes down to confidence. All right, confidence for you as a leader, but confidence for your string player, for them to actually believe they can contribute and they can get away from only being in a classical environment and being in a worship environment. We're going to tackle the first one because it will help the second one. So let's talk about how to write a string part along with your violin player that fits in your band. All right, let's get started arranging a violin part or any string part for our worship team. First, we're going to need to know what notes we have available to us. And to do that, you just need a pen and a piece of paper. Now, we're in the key of C, so it's going to be pretty simple. We start with a C, and then we just work our way alphabetically. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And of course, we have to end where we started to give ourselves the octave. And those are the notes that we need. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and no sharps or flats. Couldn't be simpler. Now, the chords that I need are C major, F major, A minor, and G. But if you use this method, you don't have to worry about the major and minor for a second, and I'll show you why. For the C chord, to build any chord, we're building it off of the first note, the third note, and the fifth note. Remember that, 1, 3, and 5. So if I start with a C, that's 1. Okay, now I'm going to count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Always make sure to count your first one as 1. 1, 2, 3. E is my next note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. G is my fifth note, and there's my what's called the triad. Okay, now we're going to go to F. Now we're going to treat F like it is home base, and we're going to start by having that be 1, and then count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, A is my third. All right, let's count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's my C note. Those are the 3 notes in an F chord. A minor. Have A as your starting point. We're going to count to 3. 1, 2, 3. There's my C. And then I'm going to count to 5. 1, 2, 3. Skip this guy because he already did it. 4, 5, right? So it's kind of a continuum. It goes back around on itself. Again, that was 1, 2, 3. Skip C, 4, 5, and A, C, E is my A minor triad. Finally, G. G is 1, 1, 2, 3. B is the third note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. D is my fifth note. So now I have written out all of the notes that are in each one of my chords, C, F, A minor, and G. Now we're going to go put this on sheet music. And if you don't read music, don't worry, your violin player does. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to write out a very simple version of our chart. We've got the C, the F, the A minor, and the G. Now for a reminder, I'm going to put the triad up in the corner to just help me remember what note I have at my disposal. C, all right. So we're going to start with the simplest way of writing a line. I'm just going to start with a C and I'm going to make it a whole note. I should probably tell myself I'm in 4/4 and put that C right there. Okay? Now the rule for keeping it simple is if I see the same note again in another chord, I'm just going to use it. So if I look over here on my F chord, well, F has an F, an A, and a C. Well, let's not reinvent the wheel. I'm just going to do a C again. Okay? Let's go to the A. Well, A, C, E, there's a C in A minor. I'm going to use it again. Okay, is there a C? Could I be so lucky? No, there's not a C in the G chord. What's closest? I actually have two options. I'm going to pick the B. I could go down to the B or I could go up to the D. I'm going to go down to a B. And there is my easiest line that I could possibly do. C, 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 B. Let's listen to what that sounds like. All right, so that was okay. I mean, that first version was fine, but it was maybe a little bit boring. It was very stable, but it didn't move around a whole lot. So let's call this the more fun version. What else could we do? All right, let me give my triads again. All right, so straight away, let's get off the C. Let's go to another note, and maybe it'll give us a reason to be more interesting. Let's go to an E instead. Okay, so the E is in the C chord, so I know it's legal. Let's go to the F chord. Is there an E and an F? Well, no. What's the closest note, though? Well, the closest note would be F. So I can definitely do that. All right, now we go to the A. What's the closest note? Well, it's probably the E. Go back again. Okay. And then the G. Well, the closest note to E in a G chord is probably going to be that D note. So there he goes. All right, that already looks more interesting than the last line, but let's listen to what it sounds like. All right, for my third and final version, I'm going to use the more fun version as my jumping off point, but I think I could make it even more interesting than that. And like I said, now I'm going to start with what I did last time as my starting point, but it's not my stopping point. I can definitely do more than just notes that are in the chord. We can have more fun than that. So let's start with the E, but I'm going to have a little pattern here. I'm going to use a dotted half note, which is going to give me 3 beats. That means there's a 4th beat that I get to have fun with. I'm going to put in for the F, I'm going to put in the same note as before, that F, make it a dotted half. I'll put in the E again, make it a dotted half. We'll leave the G for just a moment. All right, so here's one thing that you can do, is you can go up to get to the note that you want to get to. What do I mean by that? Here I am on my E, it would be going up to an F. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop over the F. Right here, I'm going to use a G note. Okay, now that's cool because it's actually still in my chord. Not that it has to be, but it's still in my chord. So I'm going to go E, jump up to G, come back to the F note. All right. Now, another great thing to use in your arranging and in your composition is repetition. So I'm actually going to do the same thing again. On this next measure, I'm going to use a G. I'm going to go up before I go down. So I'm going to go F, G, E, and of course that's my target tone. That's the note that's in the A minor. Now I'm going to do sort of the opposite, but the same idea. Rather than just going from E to D, I'm going to hop underneath the D and then come and grab it. So I'm going to use, again, a note that's in my chord. There's a C in the A minor. So if I go A, C, both notes that are in the chord, and then I'm going to come and land on a D. Okay? Now, the last thing I can do is add a little bit of a flourish. Usually the end of a progression, whether it's a 4-bar or an 8-bar phrase, is a good place to put something a little bit more interesting. So I'm going to put in some eighth notes. Don't worry about all of the markings. But I'm going to do this descending line, E, D, C, which will hopefully take me back to the E. in an interesting fashion. All right, so let's listen to what the most fun version sounds like. We've got the target tones, we've got the going up to go down, or the going down to go up, and finally we have a little flourish at the end. So there we go. Now that advanced one's a far cry away from our simplest one, but here's a fun trick you can do. What if I played both of them at the same time and stacked them? I've got the simple version and I've got the complex version. Let's see what that sounds like. So that's a start. The start is getting those chord tones, looking for what melodically would work if you go away from a note to get to the next target tone, and adding flourishes at the end of a phrase or at the end of a verse to stand out a little bit. That first part really helps with the second part, which is confidence. The first thing that your violin or cello player needs is a quick win. They need to know that they can do it, right? Because if you are a classical player, you might not have been exposed to chord theory, what are triads or what's the difference between major and minor, but I bet you've been playing it for a long time and you didn't realize it. That's where this comes in handy. If you can get a quick win, if you can have a success, it really lights that fire under a person to say, you know what, I bet I could write my own parts. Maybe they get interested in arranging or interested in composition, and they start to want to know more about what's going on under the hood of the pieces that they've played for years. And it makes sense why a classical player would be nervous, right? Because the chart, although reading music is laborsome at first and it takes a lot of work to learn, there's actually safety and security in that because you know what the right note to play is. By contrast, being in a worship team is sort of a free-for-all. All right, here's a C, here's an F, here's a G. Go, everybody play. And the classical player's thinking, how do you guys stay out of each other's way and how does it not sound bad? Well, the truth is that a lot of times it does sound bad. But when it's done well, every person sort of becomes their own arranger. By listening to others, they figure out how to stay out of the way. Or they don't, which is unfortunate. But the beauty of a band like that is that they're always listening and they're reacting to one another and they're moving out of the way, they're doing complementary tones. And your violin or cello player can absolutely do that with a little bit of knowledge. It might mean that they have to grow. It might mean that you as the worship leader might have to grow. Is your theory weak? Well, you probably need to shore that up a little bit because you're going to use it for the rest of your life. When you help your player figure out a line that would work, that sense of achievement is infectious, right? The more that you do that, the happier you and your violin player will be. As far as those subscription packages or buying the $7 a song, exactly here's what I play, that could be a great investment if that violin or cellist starts to use that and analyze it to figure out what's going on and how can I do that in the future. What you want, what everybody wants, is a violin player or a cellist that could arrange themselves, write their own parts, and bring the best of their sound to the band, not someone who just only plays the written page. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but for the worship context, we need something a little bit different. That's where you want to go. If you can get them a quick win, get them excited about the prospect that I could really learn this and be good at it, then you might find that they'll take off without you and they will exceed your expectations. Hey, if you've enjoyed these videos and would like to see more, subscribe to my YouTube channel or go to blueprintsounds.com. There's a free gift for you there, 23 things every worship team and tech team should know. It's free, doesn't cost a thing, but it's got a lot of good advice for everybody in the band. Stuff that somebody probably should have told you years ago, but I'm going to tell you now. All right, have a good day. God bless and bye.